This is Now What? Life After Redundancy, when your job disappears, but you don't. Hello, I'm Stevie, and you're joining me on my journey through and hopefully past redundancy, where I'm regularly asking myself the question, now what? And if you're listening to this while simultaneously scrolling through job boards you're overqualified for, while also mentally drafting your TED talk about revolutionising your industry, yeah, we need to talk. This show is for anyone navigating that strange in-between bit where you're technically a capable adult with a perfectly functional CV, but your brain is also doing that thing where it invents brand new anxieties just as the clock strikes midnight, like it's being paid per spiral. Each episode is part practical, part pep talk without the cringe, because if we can't laugh at the absurdity of manually typing your entire career history into 12 separate boxes after you've already uploaded your CV, what are we even doing here? Mostly though, it's a place to feel a bit less alone. Pick up a few usable ideas and remember that the wobbly bits don't last forever. And today we're talking about ambition, specifically the weird contradiction of being ambitious while job hunting, how it feels to apply for roles you know you're overqualified for and still get rejected, and that creeping shame that makes you apologise for having ideas or wanting more than just a job. And what happens when you realise that sitting around waiting for permission might be the thing that's actually hurting you. This one's a little bit raw, it's definitely messy, and I don't have all the answers, but if you're tired of folding yourself into shapes that don't fit, it may resonate with you. And a quick note before we dive in, if this show helps you in any way, the best thing you can do is follow or subscribe wherever you're listening. It costs you nothing, takes 2 seconds and genuinely helps reach other people who are also wondering if they've accidentally broken their entire career. And before we get into today's episode, we've got a very quick note from another podcast that supports those of us navigating redundancy.
Hi there, I'm Nick, and when you're not listening to the weekly wisdom from Stevie and in breaking down the strange things happening in your head while navigating redundancy, please check out my fortnightly podcast, Starting Over. Every other week, we explore the stories of incredible individuals through 10 key questions. We dive into the challenges of a career setback or break, personal growth in this time and lessons learned along the way, practical tips to help others facing similar situations, and ultimately a chance to showcase the person behind the CV. Join me as we listen to these journeys and remember collectively that career setbacks and breaks are not the end, but the start of your next chapter. Find Starting Over on wherever you get your podcasts from. But for now, back to Stevie and take care.
So, I don't know if you've experienced this, but there's a thing that happens whenever I'm in the supermarket where you'll be standing in front of the yogurt section for what feels like maybe 17 minutes, holding two nearly identical pots, trying to work out the difference between Greek style and Greek inspired, and why one is worth 47 pence more, and whether that's just capitalism weaponizing my indecision. And then someone walks past you and grabs their yogurt in 0.4 seconds without even looking, and you're left standing there wondering if they've just got life figured out, or if they just don't care about probiotics. That's kind of what ambition feels like when you're job hunting, except instead of yogurt, it's your entire professional identity, and instead of 47 pence, it's your sense of self-worth. One of the hidden things about when you're made redundant, or you're in between roles, or in whatever polite phrase we're using this week to describe professional limbo, it's not just that the job search is hard, it's that being ambitious while job hunting creates this absolutely bizarre emotional contradiction that makes you feel like you're failing at two completely opposite things simultaneously. On the one hand, You're ambitious. You know what you're capable of. You've got ideas. You've got drive. You can see the thing you want to build, or the role you want to grow into, or the impact you want to have. That part of your brain is still firing on all cylinders, coming up with plans and strategies and those little daydreams where you're giving the keynote at a conference in 3 years' time and everyone's nodding along like you've just solved a problem they didn't know they had. On the other hand, you're also applying for jobs that are genuinely well within your capabilities and you know you can do. Not in a snobbish way, just factually. Roles where you read the job description and think, I could do this in my sleep. Or, I was doing this level of work 5 years ago. Or, this is literally the job I had before the job I just lost. And you apply anyway because, rent exists, and because maybe, just maybe, getting your foot in the door somewhere, anywhere, will stop that creeping feeling that you're becoming unemployable. And then you don't get it. You don't even get an interview. You get that lovely automated rejection email that says, unfortunately, on this occasion, like a polite little knife to the ribs. And suddenly you're sitting there thinking, I wasn't even aiming high and I still missed. That's the part that does your head in. Because if you're reaching for something ambitious and you didn't get it, fine. That's disappointing, but it makes sense. Ambition comes with risk. You swing big, you might miss. But when you're deliberately aiming a bit lower than what you're capable of, when you're playing it safe, pragmatic and sensible, and you still get rejected, it creates this awful feedback loop where your ambition starts to feel like a character flaw. Like perhaps the problem is you're deluded. Maybe you're not actually as good as you think you are. Maybe the ambition was always just arrogant, dressed up in fancy clothes, and now the universe is gently, or not so gently, correcting you. And this is kind of where it gets worse, because ambition, when it's going well, feels amazing. It feels like fuel. It's the thing that gets you out of bed in the morning with ideas buzzing around your brain like little caffeinated bees. It's what makes you excited about work, even when work is objectively quite boring. It's the reason you volunteer for the project no one else wants, or stays a bit later to fix something that doesn't technically need fixing, or pitch an idea that might be a bit ridiculous but could also be a bit bloody brilliant. But ambition, when you're unemployed or underemployed or stuck in this weird purgatory where you're technically working but it's not the thing you actually want to be doing, ambition becomes a little bit embarrassing. It feels like showing up to a fancy dress party in full costume only to realise no one else got the memo, and now you're standing there in a Viking helmet while everyone else is in jeans and a t-shirt. You kind of feel like you need to apologise for it. Like maybe you should, just tone it down a bit. Stop talking about the big ideas. Stop mentioning the thing you're building or the career you're trying to pivot into or the version of yourself you're trying to become, because what's the point if you can't even get a call back for a job you're overqualified for? And the insidious bit is that the shame doesn't come from other people. It comes from yourself. It's that voice in your head that says, who do you think you are? I was really going to do a Cockney accent there, but I've pulled it back a bit. But it says, who do you think you are when you're drafting a cover letter for something interesting, or you can't afford to be picky, when you're about to not apply for something that makes your soul itch just looking at the job description? Or maybe you should just be grateful for anything at this point when you're turning down an offer that pays less than you were earning a decade ago. That voice is a liar, by the way, but it's so convincing, especially in the early hours of the morning when you're lying awake doing that mental maths around how long your savings are going to last if you don't find something soon. Now, I've had a specific flavour of this that's been circling around my head recently. Been applying for roles that I know, and this is objectively, factually, and it's not arrogant, are a step or two below where I've been operating. And it's not because I'm being strategic about it or because I've got some clever plan to work my way back up, but I'm trying to be pragmatic. I'm trying to be sensible, adulty adult, who takes what's available rather than holding out for the perfect that may never materialize. And I'm not getting them, not even close. I'm getting the thank you for your interest, but we decided to progress with other candidates. That email, which is that professional equivalent of being told it's not you, it's me, except it's definitely you and everyone knows it. But the part that makes it so destabilizing is it breaks the internal logic you've been operating on. Because the deal you made with yourself when you started applying for these roles was, you know what, okay, I'm lowering my expectations, but in return, I'll actually get somewhere. You're trading in the ambition for some security. You're being realistic. You're doing the grown-up thing. But it doesn't work. You're still not getting through. And I get it. It kind of makes sense because it's the whole piece of if an employer sees that you're overqualified, they're going to go, well, this person's going to leave at the drop of a hat. So I can totally understand from their perspective, they don't necessarily want to take a risk on employing someone who was doing this job 5-10 years ago. But ultimately, you get stuck in this absolutely maddening position where you're simultaneously too qualified and not qualified enough. You're too ambitious and not ambitious enough. You're too experienced, but you're also not experienced enough. It's back to Schrodinger's application again. You're Schrodinger's candidate this time. You exist in that quantum state of being overqualified and underqualified until someone looks at you. The worst bit is you can't even complain about it properly, because if you say, I'm not getting the jobs that I'm overqualified for, people are essentially hearing, I think I'm too good for this work, which makes you sound like an absolute doodly-doo-dah-day. That's the technical term. But that's not what you're saying. You're saying, I'm willing to do work. I'm actually trying to do this work, but I'm being rejected anyway, and I don't understand the rules anymore. It's like playing a game where the goalposts keep moving, but they're also invisible, and also you're not entirely sure that you're on a football pitch. It might be a squash court. Here's the other thing that happens when you're ambitious in your job hunting. You start to realize that ambition in this context is actually a little bit of a tax you're paying on your own mental health. Because each time you apply for something that's lower than your capability level, you're doing this psychological gymnastic routine where you're having to simultaneously believe two contradictory things. You need to believe that you're good enough to do the job, otherwise why bother applying, but you also have to believe you're not too good for the job, because if you come across as overqualified, they're going to chuck your application in the bin before you've even finished writing your cover letter. So you tailor the CV, you tone down the achievements, you remove the impressive bit about the project you led or the strategy you designed because you don't want to scare them off. You write a cover letter that's just enthusiastic enough to sound interested, but not so enthusiastic that it sounds desperate or delusional. You're trying to make yourself sound capable, but not threatening, competent and not intimidating, but just like someone who could do the job really well, but also wouldn't get bored and leave within 6 months. It is exhausting. And the ambition, the actual genuine ambition that gets you excited about your career in the first place, it's just sitting there in the corner of your brain like a pet you're not allowed to bring to the party. You know it's there, you're aware of it, and you're trying very hard to pretend it also doesn't exist because acknowledging it feels like self-sabotage. By the way, in this example, that pet is a guinea pig. Don't know why. And then, because the universe has a sense of humour, you'll be in an interview for one of these roles and they'll ask you, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And you have to calculate in real time whether to tell the truth, which is probably running my own thing, or 3 promotions up from this role, or honestly, not here. Or whether to lie just enough to sound ambitious, but not so ambitious that they think you're using this job as a stepping stone and leave the moment something better comes along. So you say something vague and positive about growth and development and contributing to the team, and then you go home and feel just a bit grubby about the whole thing because you just spent 45 minutes pretending to be a little less ambitious version of yourself in order to maybe get a job you don't actually want but need to anyway because, you know, capitalism. Now, here's where I have to be honest with you, because this particular episode, I do not have a neat solution wrapped up in a bow. I don't have a 7-step framework that fixes it. I don't have a productivity hack or a mindset shift or a motivational quote that makes this contradiction go away. What I have is what I'm doing right now, which it could be the right thing or it might not be the right thing, but it's the only answer that I've got at the moment. So this morning, literally this morning, as in 7 hours ago, a friend and I set up a business. Not a side hustle, not a let's see if this works experiment, an actual business, with Companies House. There's a business plan and a model and a thing we think solves a real problem for real people. And I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if anyone's going to use it. I don't know if we'll make any money. I don't know if this is the smartest decision or the most deluded one, or if it's just both at the same time. What I do know is that I got tired of trying to fold myself into shapes that don't fit. I got tired of applying for roles where I have to pretend that I'm less than I actually am. And I'm a bit bored of waiting for someone else to give me permission to do the things that I'm capable of doing. So we're doing it anyway. And of course, I'm still applying for jobs, but I'm not burning any bridges or making grand declarations about entrepreneurship and being the only path or any of that nonsense. I'm being pragmatic. If someone offers me a role that pays the bills and doesn't make me want to fake my own death, I probably will take it. But I'm not putting my ambition on hold while I wait for that to happen. I'm not treating my ideas like they're a luxury I can't afford until someone validates me with a job offer. Because here's what I've worked out, or at least what I think I've worked out, which may change tomorrow but feels true for today. My ambition isn't the problem. The ambition is the bit that's keeping me functional. It's the thing that makes this whole absurd process feel like it has a point just beyond paying rent. And if I let my job search kill that, if I let the rejection emails and the automated responses and the we've decided to progress with other candidates wear me down until I stop believing I'm capable of building something worth building, then I've lost the thing that made me good at my job in the first place. So yeah, this morning we set up a business and I have absolutely no idea if it's the right call, but it feels better than sitting around waiting for permission. So in terms of practical things, this is normally the part where I'm able to give you a bit of an idea of an action to take away, something you can implement immediately and feel better about your life. But again, being completely honest, I don't have that this time. What I have is what I'm trying, which might work, it might not, but it's better than nothing. But the first thing was to stop apologizing for your own ambition, because it's the hardest one, but it's kind of important as well. If you're ambitious, own it. Not in the not in the LinkedIn power poster kind of way where you're offering inspirational quotes over those sunsets, but just in that internal way where you stop treating your ideas like they're embarrassing. Don't downplay what you're capable of when you're talking to people, and don't edit your CV to make yourself sound less impressive because you're worried about being overqualified. If they don't want you because you're too good, that's their problem, not yours. And the second thing is apply for the roles you actually want. I know, you need to pay rent, you need to pay the mortgage, you need to be pragmatic, you can't afford to be picky. I get it. But here's the thing. Applying for roles you're overqualified for isn't a safe strategy. It feels like it should be, but it's not. You're not actually more likely to get those jobs, and even if you do, you're going to be miserable in 6 months. So, sure, apply for the pragmatic stuff if you need to, but also apply for the thing that makes you think, God, that'd be brilliant. Apply for the role that feels like a stretch. Apply for the job you're not entirely sure you're qualified for, but would be super excited to do. Because at least if you get a rejection from that, the rejection makes sense. And the third thing, build the thing you wish existed. Now, this is the bit where I'm going to sound like I'm selling you something, but I can't promise you enough, I'm not. I'm just telling you what I'm doing because it's the only thing that's made the last few weeks feel less like drowning. If you have an idea, any idea, even a half-formed one, do something about it. You don't have to quit your job search. You don't have to go all in on entrepreneurship. You don't have to build a business, but do something. Write that first chapter of the thing, build a prototype, draft a proposal, make the thing that's been sitting in your brain, taking up space and making you feel like you're wasting your potential. Because here's what that does. It gives your ambition somewhere to go that isn't just wait for someone to hire me and validate my existence. It reminds you you're capable of making things happen even when the job market is pretending you don't exist. And it gives you something to talk about in interviews that isn't just, been applying for jobs and been rejected a lot, which, let's be honest, is not a great narrative to run with in the STAR framework. Then find another person who gets it, and this is non-negotiable. You need at least one person in your life who understands the ambition thing. Someone who doesn't look at you like you're delusional when you talk about the thing you're trying to build, or the career you're trying to pivot into, or the version of yourself you're trying to become. Someone who, when you say, I'm thinking of doing this possibly ridiculous thing, doesn't immediately start listing all the reasons it may not work. Because you already know the reasons it might not work. You don't need help with that bit. You need someone who says, yeah, go on then, what's the first step? Doesn't matter who it is, just find them. Because trying to be ambitious all by yourself while also job hunting and also pretending you're fine is a recipe for losing your mind. And finally, accepting that this is just all going to feel a bit contradictory, and that's all okay. You're going to have days where you're applying for jobs you don't want and feel like you're betraying your ambition. And then you're going to have days where you're working on your project and feel like you're being irresponsible because you should be job hunting instead. You're going to have days where you get rejected from something you were overqualified for and feel like the universe is personally mocking you with a really horrible voice. All of that is normal. You're not doing it wrong, that's just what this phase feels like. The ambition and the job search don't have to be in conflict. They can coexist, Captain Planet Harmony style. They can even support each other if you let them. But you've got to stop treating your ambition like it's a luxury you'll get back once you've sorted out all the practical stuff. Because if you wait for everything to be sorted before you start building the thing you actually care about, you're going to be waiting forever. So what's the takeaway? If there is one thing to take away from this, it's your ambition isn't the thing that's making the job search harder. It's the thing that's going to get you through it. So stop apologizing for it, stop hiding it, and stop waiting for someone else's permission to act on it. Do the first small thing today. Not when you get the job sorted, not when everything's stable, now. Because ambition without action is just anxiety with, really good marketing. Alright, that's me for today. If any of this landed, if you've nodded, laughed, or did that tiny exhale through your nose that counts as a reaction in Britain, then just please do me a favour, follow, subscribe wherever you're listening. It helps this show find other people who are also wandering around in the weird in-between bit of life where they've just walked out of a meeting they didn't understand. And if you know someone currently in their now what era, especially if they're ambitious and feeling guilty about it, send them this episode. Just lob it over the fence, like a helpful emotional parcel. Oh, and the other thing just to call out, before you disappear into the algorithm of scrolling, if you've got an idea that's been sitting in your brain making you feel like you're wasting your potential, I beg you to do something about it. Doesn't have to be big, doesn't have to be perfect, just do the first tiny thing towards it. Write that first sentence, send that first email, make a phone call, because the difference between ambition and anxiety is whether you're moving or not. Right, I'm going to go, and if you're asking yourself now what, you're in the right place. Before you go, it's a quick favour. If you like this episode, please hit follow or subscribe. I know every podcast says that, but apparently it actually does something to the mysterious algorithms, and it helps me pretend I'm not just talking to my kettle. So go on, give it a tap.